the number one contendership for the featherweight belt. Weird spot that the featherweight belt's in right now because Volkanovski is champion. Max Holloway is the number one ranked contender in that division. He has lost twice to Alexander Volkanovski, although controversially, especially in the last one. But it doesn't seem like he is going to get that third shot anytime soon. You don't know what happens with Max at this point. He has beaten T-City before and has been in a spot where, he is, in a lot of people's minds, the best featherweight there ever was. And so we're at the spot where, there is opportunity here. There's a new possibility for a contender. And so who was it going to be? We haven't really known with Brian Ortega what we were going to get because he hasn't been in the octagon since he lost to Max Holloway, and that was December 2018. So that's a long time ago. We're almost pushing 2 years on that. And so a lot of questions with him, but he's still young, and I think that we were seeing this with Brian's career as the fights were going forth, especially that Frankie Edgar fight where he knocked him out. Nobody knocks out Frankie Edgar like that. And so you thought that this guy was going to be a real danger to Max Holloway, but maybe it was just a little bit too much too soon. He's only 29 years old, so it's at a point right now where maybe that was too early in his career. So what was he going to do with all this time? Korean Zombie, we know, is crazy dangerous when it comes to these types of matchups. As far as, he can never count him out in the midst of a fight. He is always going to live true to his nickname, come forward and bring a lot of danger when it comes to these matchups. He also hasn't been in a year's time, so it's been a little bit for him, but he's as dangerous as ever. You think about all the fights that he's been in there with, even since his break. That Yair Rodriguez was a legendary fight for ages. Renato Moicano beating him, Frankie Edgar. So this was a fun matchup. I was looking forward to it, but it really wasn't a close fight. It wasn't. Brian showed a lot of versatility on those feet, man. He looked as polished as you could ask a young man to look at his striking. Versatile, was really just catching Chan Sung Jung with everything. Catching him inside, wasn't allowing him to be comfortable. His jab was a super big weapon in this one. Hit a spinning back elbow at one point. Was trying to hit with lead elbows at certain times. He brought out the whole bag of tricks for this matchup and looked in a lot of people's minds, I think, coming out of this matchup, like Chan Sung Jung really couldn't get going at all. He ended up getting cut over his eye pretty badly. They had to stop to check on it. And, it really wasn't ever in doubt. It was just a matter of the clock running out. Brian Ortega did feel like he took the foot off the gas just a little bit as the thing looked like it was in the bag. But even in the midst of that, anytime that Korean Zombie got close to him, he was peppering him right in the face and wasn't going to be an issue. So he solidifies himself, man, as a title contender, going to take on Alexander Volkanovski. And I got to tell you, man, if this is the guy that we're going to see in the featherweight fight, if he shows up, like in a lot of ways, we saw a guy who had some real striking capability going into the Max Holloway fight, but wasn't as refined, was still all very new to him. This mostly was a one-trick pony kind of fighter. And now he's going in there with a guy in Alexander Volkanovski who, he looks like he's going to have a nice advantage of versatility. He's going to always have that option if it gets up against the cage. If he does get taken down, he's going to be able to go to his bread and butter. But the striking just looks so much more polished. You don't fight for 2 years and you use all of this time to work the way that he works. People already thought that this guy was title quality, and now he just looks very, very refined. I think this guy's a real danger, man, a real danger to Alexander Volkanovski, who, could be in this spot where he's coming into this next fight looking to prove a point, because I think there's a lot of people who are doubting his title reign because of the last win against Max Holloway, and so that's always a dangerous thing too. If you have a fighter who is worried that they got much to prove against the rest of the world and all that type of stuff. But, man, Brian Ortega just brought it all tonight. And you think, like, if this guy is that good, like, who is beating him? Because, there's a lot of guys who are good in this division, but this guy might be better in the submission game than anybody in the 145 division. If you put on top of it that he actually becomes an elite striker, super dangerous. And I think the other thing that's got to be the guy who's got to become the biggest who's got to be the biggest Brian Ortega fan. I would almost put like an Apollo Creed, Rocky Alliance on this one is Max Holloway, because if you're Max Holloway, you're never getting back to the title shot if Alexander Volkanovski has gold around his waist, at least in this title reign. So if you're Max Holloway and you've spent all that time with Alexander Volkanovski, especially with all the tricks that he puts in there, with all the with the late round pushage that he's able to put forth, what gear can he go find into? Because that's really been the story, is that Max has been able to get in early on Volkanovski. Well, actually, it's kind of a flip on. The first fight, it was him coming on late. The second fight, it was him taking on early. So he spent 10 rounds in there with him. If I'm Brian Ortega, that's the first call I'll make it, if that's not weird for him, because you want all the intel you can to go beat this guy. And then if you're Max Holloway and you have Brian Ortega as champion, that obviously puts you in a much better spot to get back to the title picture for yourself, because you've beaten him before. So really, really a great performance by Brian Ortega. Not the classic I think we were all looking forward to last night with this matchup. I think we were probably hoping for a little bit more of a back and forth, but I think it just speaks to what Brian is looking for. Will some people be wondering, is Chan Sung Jung, is he looking a little bit weathered? I don't know. He's only 33 years old. We're not talking about a guy and a guy who's also taken 2 years off, to take military service. So I don't think that's the case. I just think Brian was at another level tonight. I really, really do. I think that he came in there with a lot more versatility than Korean Zombie was probably expecting, and probably didn't think that he was going to have to prepare for, quite frankly. On the other end of this card, we had Jessica Andra. She got herself a big win over Caitlin Chikagan. Caitlin was number 1 at 125, so for Andra, she puts herself in a really good spot. She makes her debut at 125. This is the former 115 champ. Has fought at 135 before, so she looked absolutely fantastic. Hit her with a gnarly body shot going forth with this type of deal, and because of that, was able to put her away, get herself a big time win. And I would say right now, you beat number 1. It's a marketable matchup. Her versus Valentina. I still like Valentina to win that fight if they do end up fighting for the belt. But what I would say is Jessica Andrade has shown you that she is just always capable of coming up with the home run shot in so many ways. So I don't think you can count her out of that matchup. I don't think it can be one of these things where you look upon her and say, oh, Valentina is definitely going to dominate. I think that this is a special type of fighter who is so dangerous in there, especially in a 5-round fight. The more time you give her, I think we even saw that with the last Rose fight. Like, Rose is lucky that fight wasn't a 5-round fight, and if it was, maybe it would have ended up being really dangerous for her, but it wasn't. So she ends up getting herself the win, and Valentina is going to find herself in a spot with her hands full. But a fun matchup. I think we've been looking for something for Valentina, and I think that's a former champion taking on a champion. I like that matchup for Bullet, and I think actually could do some nice numbers for the UFC as far as people being interested. So that's the recap of what went down of UFC Finale. Now, of course, coming up next week, we have a biggin. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. You got UFC 254 coming at you from Abu Dhabi. Now, this is, I believe, just so I could get this correct for everybody, my schedule's been a little bit out of whack when it comes to the fight stuff, but I believe this starts super early next week, so everybody is just clear. Next week, if you are planning to watch UFC 254, be in mind, keep it in your head, 2 o'clock, according to UFC.com, 2 o'clock Eastern time for us down here in Miami, is when the main card starts. The main card starts at 2 p.m., so just keep that in mind. Make your plans accordingly. As you know, if you're going to be sitting down, if you're planning a big watch party tomorrow night, you may have to set aside some time in the midst of college football because you have 254 going on in the midst of the afternoon. Now, why are they doing this? This is from what I understand, this is a Khabib thing. This is like they're trying to get prime time on that side of the world for him. He's obviously a very big deal. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do big numbers over there. I do think this is a bit of a business risk from an American standpoint for the UFC because you're talking about putting this in the heart of college football. Like Big Ten, everything's back. And you're putting that, so if you're starting at 2, let's say Khabib fights at 5, you're putting that kind of in the heart of everything. I always say, though, this when it comes to a fight, no matter when it is, you're investing at most a half hour. So at least just for people who just tune in for the main event. Obviously, if you're watching everything like people who listen to this show do, it's different. But I do think that matters, is that we're in a spot where, they're not investing the whole day. There's going to be a lot of people that just tune in to watch Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. But just keep that in mind. Next week, it is going to be super early if you were going to be tuning into this. And look, this is a fun fight. It's got a lot of what ifs to it. But I'm gonna put something out for the best part of disclosure. The way I've been going about how I think this fight's going to go, and I want to make it clear that I put a big amount of praise on Justin Gaethje his last fight. I thought this was a guy who came into the UFC and had peaked somewhat. Like, he came in, he looked like he was going to be super exciting guy, but wasn't going to win fights. And, could make people pay, and it was always going to be fight of the night, but was he really a title contender? And this guy has just made himself better and better and better every time he goes in there. So that performance that he had against Tony Ferguson was one for the ages. It was under some weird circumstances where it was delayed a bunch. Remember, Tony did cut weight twice. So, maybe people want to take some credit away from him from that. But you beat Tony Ferguson, who in a lot of people's minds may have been the best lightweight fighter on the planet for the last 5 years. It's a great performance. And I think showed a lot, and he's shown a lot ever since his loss to Dustin Poirier. I feel like with this fight, I just don't see Khabib losing. I don't. I think that this man is just so damn good, and I've been doing the thing with him. I'm not one of these guys where I jumped on the Khabib bandwagon early. I've definitely hopped on it late, where I've always looked at some of these matchups and I'm like, all right, where can it really happen? Who's he really been in there that's tested him, though? Michael Johnson even put one on him and gave him a little bit of danger. Who's he really been in there with? Ally Quinto went the distance with him. I thought Conor would get the best of him. He did not. Dustin, you guys know I think the world of Dustin, so I'm going to think of a way for my guy to go and get that win. But each and every time, and especially the last 2, he's not only found a way to dominate, but he's found a way to go finish the fight. And he has looked tremendous. He's had a really, really great title reign in his 2 title defenses. I just don't. And so for Gaethje, I know they talk about this takedown defense that he's got and that he's got the recipe. I don't think, and Dustin talks about this, like, I don't think anybody, a lot of these guys practice with all types of fighters. You don't think that they go into these types of matchups and practice for, takedown defense and all that type of stuff? No, of course they do. And so, look, I think Justin is fantastic. And yeah, he certainly has some real hurting bombs in him, but so does Conor. So does Dustin. Do you want to say that, Justin is willing to go through the fire a little more? You think he's more willing to go through the fire than Dustin is? All right, well, I mean, those two, if we're going to do MMA math, those two fought each other, and Dustin was the one who came out on top. Also, this is a different kind of going through the fire. This isn't, stand and bang with the guy at the center of the octagon for, 15 minutes, 25 minutes. You're really in this mental mind that's like, I'm going to get brought up against the cage. I'm probably going to get tripped. I'm probably going to get held down for, 3 minutes and 15 seconds, maybe 4 minutes. I'm going to try not get choked out. I'm probably going to get my arm pinned behind my back, and he's probably going to wail on my face. And so then it becomes you thinking about, finding Hail Marys. Can you really shake Nurmagomedov off of you enough to really put some damage on him? And I just feel like I've gotten to the point now. I've seen him in these high level fights. He now is taking on the elite of the elite. I don't believe that Justin Gaethje is going to be able to do that. It's not taking anything away from Justin. I think he's fantastic. Again, he's shown such growth in his MMA career. And if he does, you're talking about one of the great career comeback stories that we've ever seen. But I've gotten out of the business of doubting Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm still not the biggest fan of I love Khabib. I love the personality. I love the persona. I don't love watching his fights. I'm not like this, this huge Khabib fan, but I am a fan of people trying to solve the riddle. And right now he's the biggest Rubik's Cube in the sport. Nobody can seem to solve it. And I don't think Justin Gaethje is going to be the guy to do it. I don't. And if he is, look, you guys know I acknowledge when I'm wrong. Right, I'm wrong plenty, and I'm wrong often. But I feel like I've been the guy who's always been like, Khabib's striking is not that good. And, even, if he tries that striking bleep with Connor's going to, you know what? And the other thing is Khabib's actually looked pretty decent with his striking. He hasn't, he's not going to light you up, but he's so almost unorthodox and so unafraid to throw now that I don't even think you can look at that as some grand weakness. It's not great. Trust me, he's not ever going to be the boxer that Conor or Dustin are, but it's good enough to get to where he's got to get to. And that's all he's trying to do. And so, and I was same thing with Dustin. I was like, Dustin is great at takedown defense. He doesn't have a weakness, and he still got taken down. He had a great place where he jumped into a guillotine and almost got him, but he didn't. And I just don't think that there's going to be that margin for Justin Gaethje to go and get himself a win. So I don't think he's going to finish him. I feel like Justin is too wily, too crazy. So I could see him, taking the punishment the whole time, unless, maybe Herb just sees his face turn into a balloon or something. I don't know why I'm assuming it's Herb Dean, but whoever the referee is, just see his face turn into a balloon and he ends it. But I don't see Justin getting the job done. I think this is Nurmagomedov's fight all the way.